Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I wanted to help break down and even learn a little bit about the stat mastery passives, since I didn't even fully understand how they all worked before this video, but that's what I'm going to be finding out today. Not only will I test how every passive works, but I will also give a comparison of 101 stat points and 200 stat points to help show the difference between going for the minimum versus the maximum points for the passive, if there is any difference at all. For our first passive that we'll be dissecting is damage mastery. As it reads, investing in over 100 points will grant even more damage, meaning it isn't capped like stamina or mana value. Then we also have the passive Crimson Wrath, which will distort your screen and literally make you go into a manic blind rage. This passive will simply grant even more damage while it's active. Finally, the passive states that the damage bonus will increase depending on the stat investment and the user's HP. Now for reference, each water bullet will deal 20 damage apiece for a total of 200 if all of them land. I'll actually be doing 6 damage comparisons, with the first being with the base 101 damage investment. I was genuinely so surprised to see how the numbers turned out for the last damage test. They're showing you that you can get up to 130% more damage if you're in Crimson Wrath while one tap, as long as you have 200 investment points in the damage. Up next we have health mastery. As I mentioned before, health is not capped at 1500 like mana or stamina is, so you can get up to 2000 health if you'd like. Anyways, once you apply over 100 points in the health, you will gain the passive Titan's Aegis. Titan's Aegis will become active much like Crimson Wrath after you mana burst, which will increase health regen and grant damage reduction. As you can see on screen, Titan's Aegis will reduce the damage by 15%, however, the damage reduction will not increase even if you apply 200 points in the health. Now going back to the health regen that Titan's Aegis provides, on screen I will show a race with and without Titan's Aegis active so I can show you the health regen speed. I've done my best to calculate everything correctly, but since both health values started at 1834 health, I timed both clips and found that the example without Titan's Aegis fully healed within around 8.25 seconds, while the example with Titan's Aegis active fully healed within 5.5 seconds. Plugging everything into a calculator, I was able to find that the regen speed is increased by 50% during Titan's Aegis. Now there are some downsides when it comes to going this mastery, such as a decrease in damage output up to 20%. This damage output nerf even applies without Titan's Aegis even being active. The second downside is applied during Titan's Aegis, where it will give you a speed debuff, but honestly this is hardly even noticeable. Now moving forward, we have mana mastery. You can have up to 1500 capacity in mana, and investing in over 100 will grant you bonus mana regen and the passive dominating will. But before we dive into what dominating will does, I noticed while I tested 100 and 101 points in mana, the passive did not grant an innate bonus mana regeneration like the description says it does. Dominating will activates whenever you mana burst, which will ragdoll people away and grant you extra mana regen and decreased cooldowns on your spells. Now you may have already noticed that Dominating Will has increased mana regeneration, but when you compare both the 101 and 200 points invested in the mana with Dominating Will, the mana regeneration is strengthened even better than the one above. Next up we have Speed Mastery. Investing in over 100 will allow you to teleport with your dashes whenever your gauge is full, which will provide momentary iframes to the user. This means you're actually able to weave a spell, even if you were just in the hitbox of it. However, this strength comes at a costly downside of reducing your maximum health. Now, the great thing about fully investing into speed is that comparing the gauge cooldowns between 101 speed and 200 speed values, you can actually see that the cooldown for the 200 speed gauge refills twice as fast compared to the 101 speed gauge. Now, you've already seen that your health will be reduced by 100 and up to 250 health, which scales off the speed value. However, since this is a flat value, you can counteract this downside through a much heftier investment in the of health if you want to have the same health as everyone else. Finally, we have Stamina Mastery. You can get up to 1500 capacity into stamina, and investing in over 100 will grant you the ability to dash in the air and the passive Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush will activate on Mana Burst, which will reduce the cooldowns of all your skills that are currently on cooldown by half. Adrenaline Rush will also replenish all your stamina upon usage. I'd expect the Stamina Mastery to be changed in the future as it's stated in the description, but it'd actually be pretty interesting if the new mastery for the stamina would allow you to either dash twice in a row or reduce the dash cooldown a certain amount. Anyways, that's all I got for the analysis on every stat mastery. It was actually pretty interesting to analyze nearly every nook and cranny of every stat mastery, but I hope you guys learned something new or have decided on a mastery to go for if you haven't already. In any case, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.